Good morning and good evening, guys. Let us start the session today. So, guys, I'm Satya. I'm already with Edureka for the last 2.5 years, but my experience is about for 2 decades I've been working on mobile platforms. Take a look at it, feel really uncomfortable because it is running from one end to the other end. And maybe when you hold this phone on your palm and your skin may touch this button and this button may get turned on. It can be a call button, so the call will be placed for you and you'll be calling a wrong number. So the things is going to go wrong. So what we normally have to do is let us give an off inset to it wherein I just want to give a space between the edge of the screen and the button so that the button can get in slightly into the screen. Just in case if you want to do that. So do not try to bring in a button or edit control to the edge. And anyway, we have given probably about 8 dp as the spacing all around. Now let us see how to give little more space to it. So for that, let me go back to my resource and let me go back to the layout. And here I have activity main.xml and let me go to the text. And here I go with the text. Let me shrink this logcat. And you know that this happens to be the parent. Right inside the parent, you have got the edit text, you have got the second edit text, and you have a button. All those things is available right inside the parent. So instead of you setting up each and every component, like you want to tell that, hey, okay, reduce the size of this edit control, and button, and there can be a lot of other components here. So instead of giving personally setting it up, now what you can do is you can go to the root and just press enter here and just call this as padding. I'm just going to use something called as padding, and deliberately I'm giving 20 density independent pixels. When I give 20 dp, that is quite a huge number, so that I want you to see the differences. Now let me do one thing. Let me delete this and let me go to the design and let me show how exactly the screen looks like. Now because I don't want to compile and I'm showing it to you right here, and the screen looks like, I'm just trying to get that login also for you. So this is how the screen looks like. Now, let me go back to the text and I'm just going to get back my padding. There is 20 dp and I'll go and click on my design. Now y'all can see how beautiful it looks. So because you just took it in and y'all can see the edit control has gone in, you can see the login has gone in and everything has been taken care of because you said you wanted to pad right inside the parent. So all the child is getting sneaked right in, and because you said 20 dp. Now for the time being, instead of calling it as a pixel, we call it as the density independent pixel, because when we take the devices, like 3-inch device, the size of the pixel is different. For the 5-inch device, the size of the pixel is different. For 7-inch, 12-inch, and so on and so forth, the sizes will vary. So whatever, if you're trying to display something using pixels in different phone, the edit control and login button is going to look different. So to avoid that, what they have done in Android is they have gotten something called as the density independent pixel. So while using the density independent pixel, it maintains the exactly the same size of the pixel so that it will not be wavy when it comes to the various screen sizes. And that is the whole point, and that is a difference. Now, in this place, you could have also used point, and you can also use the px and go back, and slightly there is a variation. It was not as good as the previous thing, and you can see a slight variation right there in pixels. And you can use pt2 and just go check on the design and look at this. And there's a world of difference between the pt and px and your DP, that is a density independent pixel. So what we suggest you is to go with the density independent pixels, and I'll be talking about it even more in detail. So here, what is that is the preferred stuff is your density independent pixel. So I'm just getting it back and y'all can see this is how the screen goes. We have the beautiful screen, and here you can enter the username. It is asking you for the username. The very minute you start entering the username, the hint will go away, and this is what we wanted. Now let me say the username is James. I just typed in J, and that's it. The username please is gone, and I type in James, and then the password is, let me say Ohio. And this is the password. Oh my God, this is not what we wanted. And I just wanted a star to come in there as you type in the password. I don't want to show what I'm typing in as the password. That is something what is creeping into your mind. And if there is a case, just go back to the text. And so this is the edit text, and this is where you're taking in the password, and you have the input type. This input type is very important. And here you are choosing this as the text person's name. I'm going to delete this and I press Control space. And now you can choose this to be as the date so that it'll let you enter only the date, or it'll let you enter only the date and time or any number or decimal or number password and so on. So for the phone, text, and here, let me say text password. Let me choose for my text password here. So there's a text password. So when you type in Ohio now the O gets to be as a dot or a star. You can see when you type in OHIO, and you're going to see stars instead of the Ohio right there. And this is what we wanted. And this is where you can make the changes. Now, this is a UI, and this is the main activity. And this is where you're trying to display the UI. So bring in UI. So you're trying to display the UI. Now what next? So now let me add a listener to the button. Now I have a button. So let us try to understand how to bring in the button and how to bring in a listener to it. Whenever you click on the button, I want to show that the username is James and the password is Ohio or whatever. No, we need to add a listener and we need to read what is there in the edit control and we need to display it on the screen. So let's go in the simplest possible way. Let's go step by step. So I have to bring in the button. Now, what I have to do here is I have to declare the button. So I'm just going to call button. So this is my button. And what do you want to call your button as? You want to call it as the login button. So you said, okay, you got a button object and login is the pointer to it. And also you have got this editors, and I'm just going to call this edit text. And here I'm going to call this as username. Now I can also give a comma and I can also say password. This is a Java style, and whatever the objects is there, I've declared all that. And now I have to get a handler. I need to get a pointer. Now, for example, I need to get a pointer to this particular variable. So this variable points to the edit text, and that's the reason we have typed in the ID and we have given edit text username. So I need to get a handle to this particular object. That means that I need to get the handle to the first edit control. So how do we do that? And then I need to get a handle for the second edit control, edit text, and I cast it. It works even without edit text. So don't wonder why, but this is my habit for the last 8-9 years. I've been casting it. So let me cast it. And it looks good to my eyes. And I'll say resource.id. Now it is not edit text username. We already have the pointer to it. Now it is going to be the password. And I got the handle to the password in my XML file right here. And I've got the handle. And we are practically pointing to this particular file. First, you're inflating, meaning you got this activity main into memory, and then find view by ID, you went to the resource, you went to the memory, and you fetched your ID, and you have the handle. Now that's your second step. Now the last one is your button. Now that happens to be the login, and let me say is equal to button. So I'll say resource dot ID dot, and here I have got my button login, and this is where I'm getting the handle. So indenting will make the things look beautiful. So always try to do a little bit of indenting so the readability will be good and you will start enjoying your code. So look at that, one small written looks good for you here. So guys, we have the pointer to all the view areas. Now we need to add a listener. Now let us see if user clicks on the button, something should happen. So this is the Java style of writing application. Now it's fairly simple. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring in login dot, and I'm going to say set on click. Now, as I type set on click, you all can see the set on click listener, and I'm just going to click on this. Now, the second step that what I need to do is I have to bring in the view object. So I'm just going to say new view. So the very minute I give the capital letter view, and it is showing up view.onClick listener. This is all about the Java related scenarios. So what is it I'm trying to do here is I'm just trying to bring in the object view. Right inside the object, I have an interface declared, and that interface is what you call it as the onClick listener. That in turn, the interface name is onClick listener, and that in turn is going to get me, and this 3 dots is going to fetch me an implementable method. Now, this is an interface that what you have created, and then this is the on-click that what you have right inside the interface. Now, I'll create one such interface and I can show you how that works you. Now, whenever you click on the button and you're dropped right in this particular place. So all that I want to do is let me just copy this log because instead of me creating it, and I'm just getting it here. And let me say user clicked on log in. So this is what you wanted to say. But there is no fun. And whenever you click on login and the logcat, it says user clicked on this button, and for what joy. Now, the second thing, what we can do is I want to display whatever the user has typed in here, the name and the password, and that is going to add fun to the code. So let us try to bring in that, and I'm trying to add. Now, please try to watch. You have the username and you have the password, and I'm going to bring in the username, and there is a handle what we have got, username dot, and the handle as such is not going to help you in any way. I'm using username dot get text. Now, this get text means that, hey, get the text of what the user has typed in. And this is fairly enough, but as the Java practice, and we'll convert that to the string. So whatever the user has converted, we are converting it to the string. So you're asking username.getText, get it in the string form and try to print it right there. And then, so you're trying to print the username. Now, if you really want to, you can even say that. Now, let me put that as the username as UN, and this is what it is. Now, after that, let me add a plus again. I'm concatenating everything and I'll say password. So this line is getting to be too long. Now you can even press an enter here if it gets to be too long. And just I'm aligning so that you'll get an idea of what exactly is happening. Now this is a password and I'll say plus. Now this is going to be the password dot getx dot toString, and this is how you're going to get the password, and this is how you're going to display it on the screen. Now, whenever the user clicks on the button, you're going to display the name and the password. This is how you can add a listener to your login, and this is how you can get the data from the edit text that what the user has already entered, and you can display it in your logcat. So it's time for you to compile and see how this works. Now I have to click on this. Let me add, and here let's say Bangalore. As we type, you all can see it is getting converted to stars, and this is what we wanted. And now you can see the log area also. I'm going to click on the login. You will not see any action on the screen here. And at the same time, you can see the action in the logcat. But you're not able to see anything here because the verbose you're in info. Now click on this and bring it back to debug. When you bring it back to debug, you will get to see your D. That is whatever you see under the D, it is displayed to you. Now you can see user clicked on login and username is Achita and password is Bangalore. I clicked on it twice. And let me click on this once again, and it goes on and on and on as how many ever time that you click on it. And here, let me say it's going to be Rahul now. And let me say Rahul is from Uti. Now let me click on my login button, and you can see that the Rahul and the password is Uti. This is how you can retrieve, and this is how you can add a listener to the login button, and this is how you can retrieve, and this is how you can display it on the screen. So we have come to the conclusion that we are going to write an application for a login. Now, obviously, when you have entered the name and password, and we need to validate that. Now, what I can even have an if condition right here, and I can validate using my if condition. And this is what I'll be writing. And right inside this, I can validate. But this is not a good practice, and you're not supposed to do all these things. It's not a good practice to validate something like this. Now, what I need to do is I need to have now the validation. Normally, the validation happens right from the server end, and we are not ready for it. And we cannot go get the data from server because this is your second session, and that'll happen in your sixth session, and you have to wait till then. Now, I'm going to mock a validating session to you. Now, what I really want to do is now, this is the activity that what we are working with. Now, I want to open another activity called as the login authentication activity, and he is going to validate the username or the password for you. And the login authentication should go to the server and ask the server, is Vishwajit and Mysore, the Mysore, is it the right password? The server in turn is going to say, what we are going to do is we're just going to use an if condition there. We are not going to go to the server. And the server is going to say, yes, Mysore or Bangalore, or let me say Bangalore will hold on to Bangalore for the passwords. And if you type in Bangalore, and the server is going to say that, oh, yes, it's the right password. And if it sees something else, it says the wrong password. And the validation activity does the job, and it has to report back to this activity saying that whether it is true or false. Let us see how to write that. Now, we have to create yet another activity to validate it. So always creating an activity is not a good idea. Now, if you want to bring in a view like this, you can create an activity. If you do not have anything to do with a view, you can create just a Java file. But here, I can even go create a Java file. Just for fun, let us try to understand this by creating one more activity and see how it works. So before we create the login authentication activity, now let me take you to the manifest file. And I told you this is the brain of your application. Let me click on this. Now, this is allow backup, and this means that you can take a backup of your file system. And we have something called as the MIP map. Now, you may wonder what is that supposed to be now? Now, drawable and MIP map are almost a similar folder, and now they made the drawable as outdated, and of late they're following the MIP map. And I'm going to go more in detail about the MIP map. Hang on till then. And now when you go to MIP map, and this may look crazy, like when you go into drawable and you may see one of the JPEGs or one of the XML files, but in your MIP map, you're going to see IC launcher, 6 launchers. Take a look. Now you have the IC launcher, and now let me click on this, and this is the launcher. And again, I'll click on this, and you're seeing the same with different sizes. Can you see it with the different sizes? And you have the same icon with different sizes. Now, this in turn calls for your attention. Why is that I've got the same icon with different sizes? Now, the Android will suggest you to write this application. For example, to write this application, we have the background image frozen. Now, let us take a look at that. And this is your image. And take a look at your cell phone size. It is so big. And now look at this color of this frozen and this color. And this has been stretched to almost to the extent of thrice it has been stretched. And the image looks pretty hazy. Now, if you have to take the same image onto the 12-inch phone, and it is going to look horrible to you. Now, to overcome this problem, now this said you may have many devices. Now, 3-inch, 5-inch, 7-inch, 9-inch, 12-inch. Now, if this image has to go into a 12-inch device, and you have to go to your designer, ask him to design a bigger image. So whenever you're writing an application, you have to go to the web designer, ask him to design your frozen poster into these sizes. Now you have another problem. And what exactly you mean by HDPI, MDPI, XDPI? Now, let us start from MDPI. This is medium density independent pixels, high density independent pixels, extra high density independent pixels, extra high density, and this is super extra high density, that is XXX HDPI. That's what it means to you. So, if you ask me, why is that you copied the frozen poster.jpg in drawable? Why not in MIPMap? That is what is the next thing that you're going to ask. Because I'm guilty. I'm guilty because I don't have 6 images of my frozen poster. I don't have 6 images of my blue button. And I always feel better to put my stuff into the drawable because I'm not ready for it yet. Now, once if you're ready for it, once if you have designed 6 images the way that it has been given to you here, and do not stop using the drawable and copy it into the MIP map. Now, when you copy it into the MIP map and compile your program, and when the application is in the Play Store, when the user is trying to download your application, it checks, oh, the application is tabbed, and it picks up this image. There is extra high density, and it gives it to him. Now, the application is 3-inch phone. It picks this image and gives it to him. Look at the difference between 3-inch phone image and the tab. Tab is bigger. So that's how the size varies. Coming back to this XML, and there's a meaning of it. At MIPMap, at color, at string where it points to, and it is pointing to a MIPMap here, and it is pointing to the IC launcher, and your IC launcher, whatever it is, and this is what is going to be your icon, your application icon. Now, then you have the label. Now, you can see this is the label, your application name. And if you change this to something else, let me say James, and it is going to be James here as the application name, and that's what it is. And if you want to have a round icon, you can give it. And RTL, don't worry about it. And the themes, don't worry about it as of now. And you have something called as an activity. And here you all can see this is main activity, and this is the name that what has been given here as .main activity. And inside the activity, we will get to see something called as the intent filter. Now here, let us assume that we have to write something called as the intent filter as a body. And right inside that, we have action and category. And do you remember in my diagram, I wrote the XML, the Android manifest.xml will have about the launcher, default, action, category, all that will be there. I said, now you're witnessing the action, something called as a category. And here, by default, this is what will come when your application is the launcher. Launcher meaning it is an executable application. In Java, when you write applications, there will be only one main, and the other files will be the Java classes. Very similarly, in Android, the launcher is only one application that gets fired. Now, how many other activities you have got, you will have here, it will not make any sense to you. Only the launcher is what gets fired, and this is what comes in onto the screen, and then you'll be navigating from one activity to the other activity. Now, what is it you're out to do here? From this activity, you want to navigate to the login authentication activity to authenticate the password, and that is what you want to do. Now, out of which this is what you call it as the launcher, what you have written. Now, the other activity that what you're going to create, it is going to be the default activity. It will not be the launcher. Nobody can execute that activity straight. Now, let us try to understand how to create an activity. It's time for us to go create the login authentication activity because we need to authenticate the password. So how do we do that? Now come here to the package. What you all can see inside. Now I'm opening up my Java once again, and I open up the package. You have the main activity, and on the package I right click and I'll go to new. I go all the way down to the activity and I take an empty activity. Now there are a lot of activities that what you can open. Now later on, now look at this. You already have the login activity. You need not have to write all these things, and this brings in gives you the template for it automatically. Now because we are learners and we have just started from the scratch, so I'm just going to pick the empty activity. Now the name of the empty activity, it says the main to activity. Hey, you're trying to create the second activity. That's what he's trying to tell you. But I don't want to keep this name because this feels a bit tricky. Now let me call this as login authentication. I want to call it as login auth. Now, as you type in the login auth, he is also creating the layout, the UI file, and he is calling it as the activity underscore login underscore auth, and that's what he calls it as, and it's cool. Now, it's up to me to use the package. If I want to change the package, I can change the package, or I can hold on to the same. Now, as of now, let me hold on to the same, and let me say finish. He created yet another activity. See this login auth. And when you created the main activity also, it was like this, isn't it? And this is where we started writing our application. Now, very similarly, the login auth also is there. And here, if you take a look, now here, the login auth is an empty stuff and it is like this. And I would prefer to do is I'll go to the text and let me just drag and drop a text to say that you're inside the login auth. That is what I want to do. And I'm aligning myself. And here, let me stick to this guy to the top of the screen and I'm done. So I'm just going to get this guy here. And when you're here, you can click on the attributes and you can say match constraints if you want so that it goes all the way up to the end of the screen. And here you have the identity. That is the ID. This is the text view. Let it be. I have no issues. Let it be the text view. And the layout width, it says 0 dp. Don't get confused here because when you say extend that to the end of the screen, because various devices may have various sizes, and that's the reason you have taken it as the 0 dp. So it takes up the full screen. And the text view, I want this to be different. Landed in the login activity. That is what I want to say. The text size, let me give this as 22 sp. So that is what I want to give it as the text size. And here we have the text color. And if you want to, you can pick on the text color. Now let me pick on this color and I'll say, okay. See the landed in login authentication activity and you can see the text color. And I'll go to the attributes and play around and you try to figure out, you have the style. Let me click on the bold and this gets to be bolder and I'll click on italic and this gets to be italic and text alignment. And I want this to be center. It came to the center and it is so easy and you can just go play around, and a lot of them, they don't even go to this text here. And look at this, all the changes that I've made has come in here. But I would prefer to come here and do the changes. And so if you want to design it, and you can design it like this also automatically the way by clicking on the attributes and you can go on. But make sure that you have to click on the component and then only you have to click on the attribute. Now, when the focus is not there on the component and when you click on the attribute, and you're going to see something very different. That is, you're pointing to the default view. So you may wonder, oh, where is that? It is not giving my ID. It is not giving the name, and don't get perturbed. And please click on any component and then on the attribute, and it takes you onto the right screen. That's what is that you're trying to do. And here, if you take a look at this, now you see the margin of 256 dp. That is how you have dragged it down, and that is where you have placed the content. Now I drag it down, you can see the dp is increasing. It became 372. And so this is how I want to see this create the UI. Now let me take you to the manifest file and to the surprise, and you all can see something different here. Did we type anything here? No. Now, the very minute you create the login authentication activity, this is the body for the activity, and it has the login auth for you. Now, by default, the category, what you all can see, I have to create my intent filter, and which is not necessary for now. I have to create an intent filter, and inside that I can put a category, and instead of launcher, I can even type in default. Now, even without doing all that, this login authentication activity is being treated as default, and the launching activity is a main activity, and this is being considered as the default activity. Now, we created an activity called as a login auth, and that has been identified, it has been registered in your manifest file .xml, because I told you this is your brain and it remembers the complete activity. So you have registered, there is something called as a login authentication activity. Now, when you click on this, and this is what you guys are going to find. So this is what you're going to find, and this is your activity. Now, what next is, now we created everything. Now, when the user clicks on the login button, now what exactly I need to do is, from this activity main, I want to move on to the login authentication activity. When you move on to the login authentication activity, and this is I want you all to see, to say that you moved from the main activity to this. So let us create that. I'll go to the main activity. Now here, whenever the user clicks on the button here, let me add, let's move to the login, or I will say, let's switch. Now this is what I want to do as my first step. Now I'm going to call this as my first step. Later on, the second step would be, what you will learn would be, pass the user name and password to my login auth activity, and we're going to validate it, and we'll be validating the same. And then the third step would be to report back to the main activity saying it's true or false, meaning it matched or it didn't match. And this is how we're going to go with our application. Now, let us try to get our first step going. What I will do here is I'm going to write something called as an intent. Now, don't underestimate this guy intent, and he happens to be the most important part of your Android. Your Android works because of intent, and everything around Android happens because of intent. And I told you I'm going to talk about your intent filters and intent and all that for about an hour. And that is where you're going to learn more in detail. Now, what you are going to learn is just about the superficially, you're going to learn about the intent. Now, you saw the blue color button. I pressed Alt Enter to bring in the library that I've already told you what it is. And I'm just going to say intent is equal to new intent, and I'll have my new intent. I'll open up the body, and guys, here I'm going to write two parameters. One is going to be my this pointer, that is a current object, and the other one is going to be the object that what I'm going to call, it is going to be my login authentication object dot class, because after compiling it becomes a class file, and that is all that I will give. And this is the current context. There is a packet context. Don't try to type this package context, and this comes automatically to you to explain this to you. Now, whenever you're writing this pointer, it is giving a kind of documentation saying that, hey, do you mean the current package context that you're giving? And then I'm going to call start activity. And here you have to pass your intent. Now, by doing so, you said that right from here, from the current application, I want to branch myself out to the login authentication activity, and the start activity in turn will kickstart this login authentication activity. When I run the program, and when I click on the login button, and the login turn will display what you have typed in, and then it'll take me to the login authentication activity. This is what should happen. So let us compile this. Now let me say Sanjay, and let me type in Bangalore, and here I'll click on my login in login authentication activity. Now you will have a question. Oh, that's great. And I learned this now. And how about the username and password? And if I pass it to this particular activity, and can I display the username and password right here, or pitching on? And you want to pass it and you want to display it right there. So just to make sure that everything is right, the text view is there and handle is there, everything is there. Now I'm just going back to the main activity. Now the goal is to pass the data, pass the username and the data to it. Now, how do we do that? This is getting to be even more interesting. And this is where we're going to use something called as the bundle. And we can pass the bundle in turn is going to act as the key value pair to you. and you can start passing the data using the key value pair. So let's get going with that. I'm just going to call a class called as bundle, and I'm just going to call this as bundle, and I'm going to create a new object called as bundle. Now, what exactly this means to you is this works in form of key value pair. Now, this in turn is almost similar to the hash map. It is almost similar to that. It is the hash table or hash map or whatever it is. And it is going to work as the key value pair. Now, I will call the bundle dot, and I'm just going to get something called as put string. And here, can you all watch this as the string key? And can you all watch the value here? And this is how it is asking you to given the key and value. Now here, let me say, this is a key what I want to give, key username, that is a key that what I want to give. And he's throwing an error. Hey, what is it you're trying to do here? And let me ask the red bulb, and what's wrong with this? And this is asking me that, hey, do you want to create a constant field called as a key username? Yeah, I need to create a constant. Now I'm going to click on this. Please watch what happens. Now, instead of me typing in, this is a lazy way of declaring private static final string key username, and he's doing everything to you. And I'm just going to open up the bracket and say username, and I'm done with my job. And if you come back here to your bundle, and the error is gone because you created this key username as a static variable. Now, this is all Java, and this is how you created a static variable that is private static final and the string that is the variable is key username, and you called it as the key username, and there is how you declare the static variable, and this is it. And now, how is that you're going to give in the data? I can even copy it right from here. Instead, let me type it so that it becomes an experience for you. Now, username dot get text. So get text dot to string, and that's it. Now, this is the key and value pair, and this is the key what you're giving, and this is the value what you're giving it to the bundle. Now, the next stuff is, let me copy this bundle. Now, I have to pass my password also through this, and here I'm going to say key password. Now, always this declarations, you give it in capital password, and here there is an error again. I'll click on this error, and here accounts manager, no, this guy in turn is getting me a weird stuff, and I don't want that to happen. Let me go manipulate this itself because he's pointing to a different file. So here I'm just going to call this as, so don't get into trouble with such things, and I'm going to say password, and I'm done. So here I've created the bundle, and I'm just getting, and I press the tab just to push this slightly in so that it is a part of your bundle. And to the bundle, you gave your username and you gave your password. And that is the first job that what you did. Now, secondly, what you want to do here is, now you have the start activity here. I'm just going to put, I'll copy it and I'll put a remark to it. Now, because we are moving on to the second phase, and I'll take it right here. Now, we have the bundle. No, my intent does not know anything. When you call start activity of intent, it is going to fire this login authentication. Now, I have to make this bundle as a part of my intent. Is it right? Now, what I will do here is, let me document it for you. Let's make the bundle as a part of our intent. Now, how to do that? It's fairly simple. Now, I'm just going to use my intent dot put extra. Now, when you say put extra, it will come to the key value pair. And when you say put extras, and you all can see that it is giving you the bundle. Like it can take the bundle as an extra parameter in your intent. And yes, I got it, and I'm just going to give the bundle to it. And it simply took the bundle, whatever you prepared here, so much has the extra parameter in your intent. It is taking it as the extra parameter here. And finally, you're calling start activity, and the start activity, and you're passing the intent to it. And when the intent gets fired and the login authentication gets called, and this is where you're landing. So we have one more job to do here. As you land here, now your job is to retrieve the bundle data. The bundle data has been landed here. Now, the next question is, how can we retrieve the bundle data? And that is what is the next question. It's fairly simple. Now, I'm just going to bring in my bundle, and let me have my bundle here, the declaration. No, I'm not going to create any new bundle object. I'm going to use something called as get intent. No, this get intent, it is something like talking to the intent. I'm talking to the intent. Hey, intent, do you have any extra data from outside world? Now I'm going to ask, hey intent, do you have any extra data from the outside world? If so, give me a pointer. Now I'm asking, if you have any extra data, give me the pointer to it. I'm asking, hey, give me the pointer and I'll deal with it. And no, because we had that extra bundle data, no, it gives the object to this and you receive it right here. And what next? I need to take it onto the string because what you have passed is a username and password. Now I'll say string here, I'll say username and is equal to, and the bundle in turn has it, bundle. Now you remember something about the key value pair, and I'm going to use my get string. And all I have to do is just give the key. And what I have to do is I have to give key user name. Now, this is all that I need to do. Again, it is throwing up an error. This guy says that, hey, I don't know what you're trying to use. So remember, we declared it in the activity main, the 2 lines. And instead of me recreating it all over again, I'm copying it to the login authentication because we just need the same stuff to be used, and I'll copy it. And I'm giving the key. And if the key is right, and the bundle in turn will retrieve the data for this particular key, and it'll give it to the username. So if you understand this, the next line also is very similar. Now here, instead of username, let me call this as my password. And here, I'm just going to call this as key password. That's about it. And you retrieved the username and password into the string. Now what you can do is you can have it in your logcat, or I can do something even more better. Now, the way that I declared the object, please take a look. I'm going to declare my text view, and text view is the object. I'll declare it. And here, after my set content view, I'm just going to get a handle to it. Now, a text view is equal to text view. And this is my casting and find view by ID. And now I'm going to call my resource.id. Please note you're pointing to login authentication.id. And here I have to get the ID for my text view. And this is the ID that what I've got, and I got it. Now I just want to replace the landed in login authentication activity to the username and password, and that is what I need to do. So what I can do here is I can call my text view. There are many different ways to do it, and I can call my set text, and here in set text, let me say username, and let me add username to it. So this is the username, and again I'll say plus. Now I'll go to the next line and I'll say password in the next line, and I'll add my password to it. That's about it. And the text view in turn, it'll overwrite onto the landing in login authentication. This is the default thing that what it was printing. Now this text view takes me all the way to the login authentication, and this is the ID. And onto this ID, you're overwriting the landed in login authentication activity to this. You know what? You can have some fun here. Now it was in green color. Now you can even change the color if you want. Now I'll say text view dot set text color, and I can call this color dot, and let me bring in the red, and it'll be displayed in red color. And this is all for fun. You're trying to do it. And all that you have to do is you have to see the username and password. And if you're able to see it and you're successfully able to pass the username and login to the activity that what you have created. So this is your second step. Now let me compile this. And let me say daily, and I'll say login. We have username is Zarfan Ansari. The password is also Zarfan Ansari. Now you know where exactly the things could have gone wrong, because this always happens when you guys do the cut and paste. Here the bundle get string is username and password. It is all right, and here also it is right. So here I don't see any error, username and password. Now how is that we are passing? That we need to figure it out. Look at this. Always be careful when you do this cut and paste. And here, can you see? And it is just the username. I have given the username, and that's the reason. That is a mistake. And that's the reason both the places you see it as Zarfan Ansari. Now, in this area, it has to be the password. So let me call this as password, not username. Now everything is right. Now let me compile this. Let us try to enter a different name. Now I'll say Rahul. I'll say Bangalore. And I'm going to click on my login. And here it is. And you all can see Rahul, and you can see Bangalore, and we are ready to go. And we received the data into my login authentication. What next is, now this guy is going to go to the server and he has to authenticate whether the Bangalore is the right password or not. I'm not worried about the name, and I just need to check if the Bangalore is the right password or not. If it is the right password, if the server says it is the right password, and I have to tell the main activity that, hey, you got the right password, and you can call the other activity and you can go on with your business. So that is all that we need to do. And now the authentication has to happen right here. Now, what do we have to do here is, let's start with the authentication job. So you're not going to do anything great. And all that you're going to do is, I'm just going to use the if condition. I'm mimicking my server part, but I've got nothing to do with my server. And I'm just going to use my password dot. And you can see this contains, and you can see there's a lot of things. And let me use my equals. And I will also use equals ignore case. So because when you're using the password, few of you may give the capital letter, small letter, and so on and so forth. So I want to ignore everything. And I just want to see if you have typed in Bangalore. And if it is true, and I have to say true, and else I have to say false. So if it is Bangalore, and I may have to print a message that it is true, else I have to say it is false. This is not all, and we have to do little more to it. Now, let us try to bring in a change into the main activity. Now, let us move on to the third step. Now, report back to the main activity. Now, I'm going to change the way the program is going to look like. Now, I'm just going to put a remark here. That means that if you're in step 2, release this remark. If you're in step 1, release this remark. Your program is going to work fine. Now, I'm putting a remark right there. Now, I want to do something different. Now, we have something very interesting here. It is called as start activity for result. Now, I'm not going to talk about just about start activity. Now, I'm going to talk about completely a different method called as start. Now, you all can see I typed in start activity for, see this start activity for result. And this requires two parameters. One is your intent and one is your request code. Now here, I'm just going to give the intent of what we created, and I'm going to give a very unique code. This can be any number. Automatically, you all can see the request code came in here, and this is the request code that what I really want to give. Now, what this means to you? Now, the word start activity for result itself is quite curious word. That is, start the activity for a result. That means you are expecting a result. Now, what is that? Now, we are expecting result from the login authentication activity. But it is all fine. The next immediate question is, where can we receive the result? So obviously, this is going to be next question. So for that, let me come out of my on create, on click, and here to receive, let me say, let's receive the result here. Now we need to override a method called as OnActivityResult, and you're trying to override OnActivityResult, and this is what you're trying to override. So please do not type the entire thing here, and more likely that you're going to get into a trouble. Do not type the entire thing. As you type on activity capital R and the help comes in, and you simply press enter, and this code will come in here. Now, this is where you are going to receive the result. And when you said start activity for result, and you're passing the intent and you're passing a unique number to the login authentication. Now, after the verification, the login authentication is going to pass whether it is true or false into this area and into this method called as on activity result. And this is what is going to happen. Now, how is that it is going to happen? Now, let me go back to the login auth, and we have to do a little bit of job. Now, let me create an intent is equal to new intent, and this is going to be an empty intent. Alt enter to bring in the library, and it is all done. And we have an intent, and there is an empty intent. Now, in this true case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my intent of what has been created, the dummy intent, and I'm going to call my put extra, and into that put extra, I'm going to put the key value pair, and I'm going to call this as message. Now that also I can declare it here the same way, but I'm just calling it as message. And here I'm going to pass success. That means the password that what you have entered is right. And if not, I'll copy the same. I'll come to the false, and I'm going to say it's a failure. So this is what I'm trying to do with the intent. And if it matches, I'm going to say success. If it is not, I'm going to say it is a failure. And now what next that I have to do is I have to pass the data to the activity. Let's pass the verified to the main activity. Now this is what we need to do, and it is fairly simple. So for that, you can simply call set result. It is small letter s. So you can call set result, and you have two options. You can pass your result code, that is 201, that what you created, that's a unique code, and you can send your data. Now don't mess up with this 201, and you're going to get into trouble if you just make it as 101 or something else. And I'm just going to pass my intent, and that's about it. And this in turn is going to pass the intent Now the intent is carrying whether it is success or failure, and this in turn is going to take it back to the main activity, and it is going to hand over to the on activity result. So we have one more small little thing to do and try to understand. Now you have opened up the login authentication activity. That means it is this activity. Now two activities are living in the memory. There is the main activity, login authentication activity. Now we are done with the job of the login authentication. This guy has to go to server, or it has to compare using if condition, or whatever it has to do. It has done the job. Once if it has done with the job, and you will do the authentication only once in your lifetime, you will not be requiring this activity class over and over again. Since we don't need this activity class over and over again, I can use a suicidal method. I can implement a suicidal method here called as finish. Now, what exactly the finish does is it kills login auth is killed here. Because we are done, we don't need this login auth anymore. So the login auth is killed here. So try to understand. Now it does the job of authentication, and you will never get to see the screen again. And it returns true or false. And when this activity is killed, that means the screen is gone. When this is gone, the parent for you is the main activity. You came from main activity to the login authentication, and you're falling back to main. When you're falling back to main, this is the screen that it'll go back to. So you're right here in this particular screen. You'll never be able to see the login authentication screen because it is so fast. It'll do all the job and it sends the result back to the main activity and it kills itself. And this is a good practice because we don't need, because always we'll be running with the memory crunch and memory problems, and we don't want unnecessary programs to stay in the memory. And it's a good idea for you to kill it. So that's what we are trying to do here. And we are back to the main activity. And in main activity, we have to produce a result whether true or false. Now here in the main activity, let me go see if we have any text views here. Oh, we don't have any text. Any text is there, but we don't have any text view. So I need to bring in a text view here to display whether it is success or failure. So let me go to the text. Let me just drag text here, and let me confine this guy to the right and to the left and to the top. So I'm just going to get this guy here and I'll leave him. I don't care what message or whatever that this guy is going to have. So if you really want to, you can go to the attribute and you can say match constraint. So this guy in turn is going to stretch himself and we are done. Now this is the text view 2. I don't know why it is called as text view 2. Let it be that, no big deal. That's about it. And in the main activity, no, I have to write the same way. I have to declare my text view. Now you'll understand what I'm trying to do here, because it's all a repeat and you'll get bored doing this over and over again. And the second step, what you have to do is we have to bring in my text view is equal to text view. And here I have to bring in my find view by ID resource dot ID dot make sure it is the text view 2 you're pointing to and give it. Otherwise you may go wrong. And you have declared it here, and the text view, I'm going to use it right inside this. So that's what I'll be doing now. So what next is the important thing that what you have to check is who is talking back to you. Now I'm going to use an if condition. Now I'm going to use this request code, and this is where the 201 will be sent back to you. And I'm going to use my request code, and I'm going to compare this with 201. That means am I talking to the right guy? And if that is true, and the next job that what I'm going to do is let me declare a string and let me declare a message variable to receive the data, and the data has been pushed into this particular variable. So I'm going to use my data dot get string extra, and here the key that what you use there is the message. And please take a look, make sure that you don't have any typo problems. MESSAG, and here when you come it is MESSAG. So that is what it is. And I'm trying to give the key. There is a message and he gets the data and he gives it to this MSG. So what is that I will do here is I just created the text view and I'm going to use my setText and I'm just going to pass my message MSG. So here, let me do one thing. I'll say set text view dot set text color and let me display that in red. I somehow like the red color because it's very prominent, and I'm going to display it in red and you all can see if it is the success or failure. That's about it. And this is how you receive the result, and you can display the result and you can tell the world that whether it is success or failure. And if it is success, now you have an if condition, and from here you can call the other activity and you can move on with your business. Now let us run this and see if you're right, if everything is right. Now let me say Sanjay Kumar and Bangalore. So let me click on my login. You see success here, and you will never get to see the other screen because it is so fast. It goes to the screen and it displays there. You will never get to see that because you made a suicidal attempt by writing finish. So that screen gets killed. When the screen gets killed, and this is what is the backstack screen, this is the parent screen, and it comes back. And anyway, it is coming back with the result and you're receiving the result in on data, and you're just trying to check that is it coming from 201 and is it the message, and you're taking it into the message and you're trying to display it in red color, and it says that it is success. And if it is success, here you can say that if message dot equals ignore case and it is success. Now what you have to do is very simple, and you're going to call yet another activity for your business. Now, do remember, now when you're moving on to the other activity and kill the main activity. Now, you may ask me, oh, why is it I have to kill the main activity? Because look at this, and you'll never be coming in here because it is all success. So nobody will ever bother about the screen. They don't want to come here ever again. So what you can do is you can also kill your main activity and you can move on to another activity. So that it's a good practice to keep all the unwanted activities away, and you can finish it. Meaning when I say kill the main activity, is nothing but mindlessly you can say finish, and it is going to kill the current activity and you're transported onto your business and you'll never come back from there. And this is what I want you to do, and take this as an exercise, and it'll not take more than just about 2 minutes for you to write the code. And even at the break time you can write the code. Anyway, this code is soaring up, and break time you cannot do it because you have to write so much to it, and you can do it later. Let us go to the most interesting part of the programming, and that happens to be the UI. So let us try to focus on UI and let us have some fun with UI. Let me go to my old program and let me go to the layout. Let me right click on the layout and let me go create a layout resource file. Now I'm going to teach you how to create the various resources, various layouts. Now I just clicked on it, and here you can see Android support constraint, and you can see the constraint layout as a default layout. And no, I don't want the constraint layout. There are many layouts available to me. Now I'll delete this, and here let me type in L. Now when I type in, now you have something called as a linear layout, and this is the parent layout. Now the list view and all that what you're trying to see underneath happens to be the objects which can go into the linear layout. Now let me bring in a linear layout. The file name, I just want to give it as a linear underscore layout. So I'll say finish, and here you go with the linear layout, and this is the linear layout. Now, if you go to the text and if you try to take a look at it, and here you can see this as the linear layout. Just in case you have decided, oh my God, I did a mistake. I wanted this to be a relative layout. Now, all you can do is you can just type in R. Now, you all can see this relative layout. Just press enter and it'll get changed to the relative layout. And this way you can even change the layout right here. The parent layout name you can change. And I don't want this to be relative now. I want this to be my linear layout, and I have it right here. This is your linear layout, and you have the orientation here, and we have the width and height, and everything is been declared here in the linear layout. Now, what next? Now, let me remove this vertical orientation for the time being. And I just want to show you something by just tilting the screen. Look at this. I rotated, I changed the orientation of my phone. I'll say login. And where is your success or failure message? Now, it cannot be seen. It is hidden somewhere and it has gone out of the scope of the screen. And secondly, it looks lousy and you're not happy with this. And I'll be teaching you how to take care of all this. Now, when I change the orientation back and the text you came back here, now it is visible for you. And anyway, we're going to go into all these things. And now we're going to start off with a linear layout. And this is your linear layout. And it says that now when you take a look at it and it is occupying the complete width and it is taking the complete height of the screen. And in the previous class, I told you just by changing the height or just by changing the width here to say 300 dp, and you will see the change right here. And it happens in all the layout. And here it has been, you can see this becomes smaller, and this I can call it as a whole, and this cannot be used anymore. And your screen is going to look like this. So let us have some fun. Now I want to bring in a couple of buttons in my linear layout. I can go to design and I can click on my buttons and I can drag and drop the button into the linear layout. And this is one way of looking at it. Or the other way of looking at it is I can go create it on my own. Now I'm just going to type in the button, and here the width I'm going to say wrap content. The wrap content meaning if I give a name called as the button, however long the word uses the space, and let the width be of that size. And that is what is the meaning of wrap content. And the height, I'm going to call it as a wrap content because whatever is the height of the character. Now, when you take the letter B, whatever is the height, let the height of the button be the same. So I'm just going to call it as the wrap content. Now, the ID is you can omit if you are not really using it. And in this case, we are not going to use the button, only the screens I'll be showing you, and it will not be used in your main activity. And it's just going to get the feel of the screen. So I don't need the ID. And if it has to be used in the main activity, then the ID is important for you. Now it is not. And here, let me bring in my text and let me call this as button one. So I have got the button one here and I created the button. So let's go see if you can see the button. So the button is right there. So what next is I want to get one more button. Now I'll copy this. So instead of me writing it over and over again, this is a better way to do it. And I'm copying it over and over again. And this I'm going to change it to, and I'm going to change this to 3. So I have 3 buttons. Let me go to the design and see how this looks like. And it has been placed horizontally, button 1 and 2 and 3. But actually I wanted this to be in a vertical order. And what do I do for that? Now, what you have to understand here is, now whenever you create the linear layout, by default, the linear layout is horizontal. That is something that you have to understand. Now, if you want to bring in the vertical, now I'm going to type in something called as orientation. I just typed in OR. You all can see this orientation and click on that and you select vertical. Now let us see how the output looks like. See, one below the other, and this is what we wanted, and I made it as vertical and I just got the entire thing down. And we have a problem here, and it is sticking to the edge of the screen, and this is something what you don't want. And if that is a case, you know pretty well that you can go give a padding to it, and I will say 15 dp is the padding. And let me go to the design and see. Now this looks more appealing and more beautiful, and your palm will not touch any of the buttons because you just slided the entire thing in just by giving the padding to it, and you just got it in. And that's how the button looks like. Now you may want to have 3 buttons horizontally also, but there's no way that you can have it because you have the root layout, and we have declared, we called it as vertical, and the button is coming up in the vertical form. Now you're asking me that, oh, you want it horizontally also, you want vertically also, and you want to have the set of button horizontally also. There are different ways to deal with this. Now in a linear layout, now this is a linear layout, we already have 3 buttons, and let me push this in slightly. I press the tab just to take it in. Now this is the parent layout. Now what you're trying to see here is the parent layout, and we have 3 buttons, and here I can create one more linear layout. And all that I can do from the scratch, the way that I created the button, or I can go to the design and I can click on my layouts. This is an easier way to do it. And here I have linear layout horizontal, I have linear layout vertical. Now what is that you want? You wanted the horizontal one. Now this is what you wanted. Now I'm just going to click on this guy, drag and drop this guy right inside this. Now see the 3 buttons, that what you see is vertical, and I have gotten yet another layout here. This is the horizontal one, and you can see the horizontal one. Now I can also copy this and I can drag and I can drop right inside this. Now what happened? Now you see this is the one. I moved the entire thing into this. By dragging and dropping, I moved the entire thing. So no, this is not what I expected, and I wanted to copy it. So what I can do is very simple. Now I'll right click and I'll say copy, and I'll go to this vertical. I right click and I'll say paste. We have the button and it came into the vertical and something has changed. Let me go check on that. I'll show you what has been changed. And you can see vertically 3 buttons, and you can see horizontally this, and it is that simple. I need not have to even go to my source code, and I can start manipulating everything here just by copying and pasting and dragging and dropping. All that is possible. Now going back, now take a look, and these 3 buttons that what we created, and automatically because of my drag and drop, and we have goofed it up, and we never had the match parent here. We had the wrap content. Because you did all that, it has automatically changed to the match parent. So I'm bringing it back to the wrap content. So this is what we wanted. And no, because of the drag and drop, come in here and let me go put this guy right here. And we are almost done, and we have everything in shape. And let me go back to the design, and this is how it is, and this is what it is. So see the three buttons here, and you all can see the three buttons which is going horizontally here. But we have a problem. The problem is, now there is a hole here. Now, after you bring in these three buttons, this area can never be used by anybody, and that is a problem. And that's the first problem. Now, the second problem is we have these three buttons horizontally, and there is a hole here. Can you see this hole here? And this is lousy, and this is not acceptable when it is a professional program, and having a hole there, people will not appreciate it. So what next is we don't want to see any holes right there. Now, how do I take care of it? Let this be there, not a problem. Now, what I will do is let me go into this, and you all can see that I have the horizontal stuff here. There's a linear layout, and I have got everything here. Now, let me create one more horizontal layout. Now, I can go to the design. Now, here you have the horizontal layout, and this guy is occupying the complete thing. Now, I can drag it and I can say, hey, you can stick to this particular thing, and I don't want to give you more space. And this guy gets confined to that area. So, this is what I can do. Now, you still have a space. Now, what I can do here is let me go here, and this is horizontal and vertical. Let me drag and drop one more horizontal stuff right here. Now we have one more horizontal thing, and let me go into it, and you can see that you have one more horizontal stuff. So that's what I'm going to consider. And there in this horizontal stuff, we have got the width. It says match parent. It is good for us. And it has got the height. It says the height. I don't want to match the parent. That means it is going to occupy the complete thing. I'll say wrap content. Now I'll go back to the design, and how much ever is the height of the character, it goes. Now from here, it just slided all the way up, and it is a single bar that you can see because you don't have any characters. And that is how it behaves when you change it to the wrap content, and you're trying to say it is horizontal. And what next is, I just wanted to have these three buttons right inside this. Let me walk you through like this. Now here, this is a horizontal stuff. I'm going to use something very interesting called as the weight sum, and I'm going to call this as 3. Now, what is it I'm trying to do here is, I'm trying to tell my linear layout, the horizontal stuff, that I'm going to have 3 buttons and use the space completely and give off the space to the 3 buttons. And there is what is that you're trying to say here. The weight sum of 3 in turn is going to distribute the space equally to all the 3 buttons. Now let us see how is that we're going to deal with it. And now let me try to bring in my button. So I'm just going to get the button and the layout width. And guess what? Now I'll not say wrap content or I'll not say match parent because I don't know the width of, if I have to equally distribute 3 buttons onto the width, I don't know the layout width. So since I don't know, let me say I don't know. That is 0 dp. That's what I'm going to say here. Now the layout height. Now the height, let me bring in the wrap content. That is a safe way of bringing in the height. Then I have to bring in yet another parameter called as the weight again. Now here we have the weight sum. Now I'm going to bring in the layout weight, and I'm going to say the ratio is 1. 1 is to 1 is to 1 that we are going to have. And after this, I'm going to bring in the text. Now the text, I'm going to bring in the button 1. And this is how I'm going to bring in the button. And let me copy this twice. Now this will be 2 and this will be 3. So we got it here, and let me click on my design, and this is what we wanted. And if you all take a look at the screen, and the button is using the complete space on top, you all can see a hole here. But here there is no hole, and this looks beautiful, and this is what you wanted, and you just got what you wanted. And then it makes sense to us in calling it as 0 because I don't know the width of my button, because it has to be equally, the space has to be used by all. But even the wrap content, if you give a wrap content, still it is going to work fine for you. You will not have any problem, and everything is going to be good for you. So this is how you can evenly distribute the button as the width. Now we have a lot more space here. And again, I want to bring in 3 buttons. But now when I bring in 3 buttons, I want the 3 buttons to use the complete screen. I don't know the size, the height also, but at the same time, I want the 3 buttons to use the complete screen. And this is what I want to do. Now, obviously, this time what you are trying to do is you have to create it vertically. Now, let me go here and let me pick on my vertical stuff and drag and drop right here. Now you all can see the vertical stuff has been created to you. And let me go back to the code, and this is where it is, and this is the body, and you wanted this to be vertical, you have it as vertical, and now you have to create the weight sum because you want to equally distribute it. So just get the weight sum and say that you're going to have 3 buttons and your job is done. And let me create it again because this is going to be an experience for you. Now let me create a button, and I'm just creating the button. The width, I'll say match parent, meaning I want this guy to occupy the complete width of the screen, and the height, I'm going to call this the wrap content. Now, instead of wrap content, you can also bring in 0 there like what you did previously, but even the wrap content also is going to work. And here, I'm going to bring in my layout weights, and I'm just going to call this as 1. And then I'm going to name this as my text, and I'm going to call this as button 1. That's about it. And you created a button, and let me copy this guy and let me paste it here and here. And this I'm going to call it as 2, and this I'm going to call this as 3. Now let us see what exactly is going to happen for us. This is what I wanted, because here I said not the wrap content. Wrap content means it is going to create a button of this size like what you see on top. And I said match constraints. That means it is occupying from one end to the other end. And I never knew the height of the button. So I said wrap content and I gave the weight sum, and it got distributed equally. And you all can see the buttons in a similar fashion. Now let us go back and let us play around with this. And this is the horizontal one. You may ask me, oh, if you are talking about the layout weight, if I allocate 1.5, what happens? Now take a look. See, earlier it was 1 is to 1 is to 1. It was very clean and good. Now I allocated 1.5. That means 1.5 size of the button right here. So this guy in turn pushed the third button out of the screen. Now, please do not write the applications like this. And when it gets to testing and they're going to reject it from testing, it says that, hey, the button is not visible, and come back to me with the right button. And that's what they're going to say. So do not do this. Do not play around. And whenever you're trying to use a weight sum, and stick to the discipline of the ratio of 1, and do not try to change. Do not try to make that bigger, or do not try to make it as smaller. Now I'm just going back and just to show you what happens if I make this smaller. Now I'm just going to make this as 0.5, and let me go to the design, and you all can see it as it became small and it looks lousy. There's a hole and it doesn't look good to you. And do not create such buttons, and always maintain the principles of your weight. This is the meaning of your linear layout. But let us see the flip side of the linear layout, and you have created a mess out of it. It's not a good practice to have, now look at the design, and this is the linear layout, and we have a linear layout inside this, and we have yet another linear layout, we have yet another linear layout. So eventually we have ended up having 3 linear layouts inside one linear layout, and this is what you call it as the nested linear layout. And having the nested linear layout will take a lot of time to inflate every linear layout when it is coming up. Now, this part has to be inflated once, twice, thrice, 4 times it has to inflate. That means it is going to cost us the time. It is going to cost us the energy, that is your battery, and your application is going to be sluggish. It is not recommended for you to have the nested linear layout the way that you have created. Now, the way that you are trying to write a linear layout here, it's a bad practice because it is nested. Now, being said that, when I move on to this is yet another nested linear layout. Again, it's a bad practice. I'm just pushing it in. Now, if you take a look at this, you've got so many linear layouts in it. It is all a bad practice, and this way, your applications will not be seamlessly, it will not work, and it will not be smooth, and the UI experience is going to be bad. So using linear layout is absolutely fine, but do not bring in the nested linear layout. And that's the reason we have a lot of other layouts, and we can focus on many of the other layouts. Now, let me talk about a relative layout. Now, when you take a look at this program, the same thing can be achieved via the relative layout, via the table layout, via the constraint layout. The same thing can be achieved. Now, it is not that you have to write only the linear layout or constraint layout or anything. Now, it can be achieved using any of 3 layouts. We can bring in these buttons. But what is good for you is important for you at any given point of time. Now, let me go to the layout, and let me right click on the layout. And here I'll go to new, I'll say layout resource file. And here I'll say relative layout. And here I'm just going to block this and I'm going to call relative layout, and this is what I'm going to create. And then let me click on OK. And here we have the relative layout, and it is all there. And you have the text. And when you go to the text, you all can see that you have the match parent. There is a width and height. And this is what we can see inside the relative layout. And this looks fairly simple. And this is what we call it as a parent, or this is what we call it as a root. Now going to the design, and now I can still drag and drop into the relative layout. Now let me take a button and let me drag this button right into the relative layout. Please be observant, and when I'm going to drag, please watch what happens. And I'm going to drag. Normally in the older versions, and it used to show the up arrow and it used to show the left arrow connecting to the left side of the screen, connecting to the top of the screen. Now I'm just going to drop it there and it sticks to the edge. Now I'm going to bring this in here to this place and I'm going to leave it. Nothing is happening. So nothing is happening. By default, it is going to that corner. Now what I will do, I'll stick this guy to the right side of the screen. Now I can shift if I want to, and I can also bring this guy down, or I'll hold this guy and stick this guy to the top of the screen, and then I can bring this down. Or you can also go to your attributes, and that's the best place that where you can play around with. And here you can change the ID if you want, and you can change the width to anything that you want, and you know how to change. And you can change the name of the button, size of the button, color of the button, and so on and so forth. And let me add this to the left, and I'm just going to bring this guy down, and let me do one thing. Let me add this guy to the bottom. And here you can see now this guy in turn is looking more like your constraint layout, and you're sticking it wherever you want. Now I want to place the button here, and I can disconnect this guy. Now please note the button is relative to the right of the screen and to the bottom of the screen, and that is how you've got a button. Now this is why it is called as a relative layout. Now when I move the cursor out, and you may feel that the button is placed in an odd place. No, but you may still feel that that's what I wanted. But this is not possible with a linear layout. Only in relative layout you can do all such work. Now let me take one more button, and I'm just going to get it here. And this guy is getting he is sticking to the top. Now what is that I want to do here is I want this guy to be on top of this guy, and I want him to be relative to this button, and I want to be relative to the right side of the screen, and that is what I want. Now what I will do is I'm just going to drag and I'm going to connect this guy here. Right, so I'm just going to connect this guy, and he got connected. Now please take a look, he's on top of this button, and I can stick this guy to the right side of the screen, and he's sticking to the right side. Now you all can see that when I can bring the button, and he's to the top of the button, this button, and he's to the right. Now here, let me call this as attribute, and let me call this as button 1, so that it'll be clear to you. You'll understand better. And this is button 1. And here we are creating the button 2, and I'm going to call this as button 2. Now the button 2 is relative to the button 1. It is sticking to the button 1 and to the right. Now if you move this guy slightly here, and I will delete this. Now what happens, and he has the habit of going and sticking to the left and sticking to the top because you have dragged him down and he is behaving. Now what you can do is you can even stick this guy to the left. Now when I do that, now what you can see here is this guy is sticking to the top of the button 1, but to the left side of the layout. Now when I take the cursor out, you all can see the button 1 is here and the button 2 is there. But the relative layout means that the button is not hanging around on the screen. The button is relative to the screen. Now, for example, now let me take one more button, and I just want to place the button right here. Now, what does that mean to me is, now I have to stick this guy somewhere here, and I want this guy to be relative to the button 2. And this is what I wanted. So I just made it. And now I will drag this guy, and you all can see how this looks like. Now it appears as though you have placed the button in the center, but it is not actually center. In the blue blueprint to the right, you all can see that button is sticking to, it is relative to the button 2. and it is sticking onto the right side of the screen, and it looks that as though it is being placed in the middle of the screen. So this way, relative layout helps you to have the button being thrown randomly on the screen. And that is when you can use the relative layout. And they got in a combination of the linear layout, relative layout, and the person layout together, and they made it as the constraint layout. Now, whenever you take a look at the relative layout, this looks almost like a constraint layout for you. And that's how the relative layout looks like. Now, let us have some fun with our constraint layout. Now, this is the main activity. No, I'll do one thing. Let me create a new layout, and I'm just going to call it as the layout resource file. Let me call this as constraint layout. And I'm not going to change this because I wanted the constraint layout. So I'll say it is not constant. You may understand this is constant layout. So it is constraint layout. So let me call it as constraint layout. And here we go with the constraint layout. We can have a lot more fun with the constraint layout. For example, let me create a stuff for you. I'll go to the text and I just drag and drop this guy here, and I'll stick this guy to the top, and I'll stick this guy to the left, and that's it. And I can move this guy slightly down. And no, I can make this guy slightly bigger by dragging the clamp of the rectangle so that you can see the text view right there. And I press Control click, so it takes me to the text, and here you have the text view. And instead of this, I want to call this as username. Now this is what I wanted, so I'm just getting it here. And let me go back to the design, and you guys can see the username is right there. Now I want to get the edit control here, so I'm just going to take this plain text and I'm just going to drag and drop here. No problem, I can even bring it here and I can align it later. Now what I will do is I will stick this guy to the top of the screen. I'll stick this guy to the right of the screen, and I'll stick this guy to the left of this guy, right to him. So this is where I'm sticking him, and let me see. Yeah, everything is right. See, when I drag it down, you know where you're sticking it and everything looks good to you, and you take it back and you drop it right there. So when you drop it right there, but we have a problem here, and you all can see this username is below, and the name that what you're trying to see is on top. It has not actually been aligned. Now, first thing is I don't want this name to be there, and I just want to have an hint, and let me call this as username, please. So I'll go back to the design, and it says the username, please, and somehow I have aligned it without my knowledge, so I'll misalign it now. Now, deliberately I did this. Now, you may want to align it now equally. The username should be in line with the username, please. Otherwise, it looks pretty odd. Now, what you can do, let me click on the username, and by clicking on the username to the bottom, where is that? Constraint layout. Okay, this has been closed. Show all constraints, margins, and select. Yeah, everything is fine. No, there is something wrong with the screen. Let me do one thing. Sometime it happens, and let me go back to the activity main. This is also the constraint layout, and let me drag this guy. Let me disconnect this guy, and so he went to the right. And let me get the plain text into this place. I'm just trying to mimic the same here, and I'm connecting. And here, this guy, I'll connect to him, right to the left. And here, if you see, this is text view, and this is there, and I'll go to my text. Now, this is what you created, and this you want to call it as the username. And now the background, I just want to call this is the background. I want to convert this to white, FF. Otherwise, you'll not be able to see anything there. And see the username, and you all can see this. Here also we have the problem. There is something wrong with the emulator because it has to give me the controls here to align the name to this. And what is that is happening here is there is yet another possibility. And you are able to adjust this just by clicking on this, and you can align it to however you want to this particular name. And that is what he is letting me do. And earlier we had a tab, and we have to drag and we have to connect it to the username so that the name used to get aligned. And this is the latest version of Android. Maybe that option he has taken it out, and he is letting you align just by dragging it to however wherever you want, and you can align both the names. And this is what happens in your constraint layout. Now it can be here, or you can take it up, you can align it however you want with this guy. Let me undo this because we don't need this. I'm just bringing it back to the regular state. I just got it back to the regular state. You have already learned how to use the constraint layout, and this is how the constraint layout can be used. Now, let me talk about another interesting thing that happens to be the card layout. Now, imagine I want to bring in a card layout here, and that's going to be very interesting. Now, let me show what exactly it is. Now here, let me use the moviedb.org, and this site has been blocked by the Indian government. And what we can do is I have installed a VPN, and by opening the VPN, I'm going to connect from the other country. Click to connect. It's a beautiful site, so I don't want to drop this site. So here, I'm just going to present it all over again, and you can see the MovieDB is going to come up now. So this is your MovieDB, and whenever you find time, you go to the sign up and sign up as a developer. Now I'll go to movies and you can see the popular, top rated, upcoming and all that. And let me click on top rated. And this has been top rated for ages. These are the movies or the top rated ones. And now what you're trying to see here is the card. Now, whatever is that you're trying to see here, the white color rectangle is what you call it as card. And this helps us to write real good programs, and this helps us to organize the data in form of a card. Now, if you take a look at this, the Godfather is on the card, and to the left you have the poster, and to the right you have the Godfather, the rating, and the date, and the synopsis of the movie. And when you click on more information, please watch what happens. And it gobbles up the entire screen and it shows the Godfather. Now, when you look at all these colors, the material design is going to teach you how to bring in the color and how to match and all those things you can learn if you go to the material design. And now when you click on that, and this is how it opens up on the main screen. This is the meaning of your card. Now, let us try to understand how to create a card layout. Now, to create a card layout, we have to bring in a dependency. Now, that's very important. Now, how do we bring in a dependency? Now, let me go here, click on the project structure. Now, where I'm hovering the cursor is what is called as the project structure. I'm going to click on this. Now, here you have the project structure, and it says the graded versions and all that. And let me click on my dependencies, and let me click on my app, and it is showing me all the stuff that what I have in my Gradle as of now. Now I don't have the card view right here, and what I will do is I have to click on my plus to bring in a new dependency, and I have to click on my library dependency, and here I have to type in my card view, and I'll type in the card view and I'll give my search. It is searching for the dependency. Let me just search for the view. Maybe I'm going wrong with my typos, and it says JCenter view, and no, he's not showing me the card at all. Just let me move on quickly to my reference code and see what is it I'm trying to use in my card. Build Gradle, and you all can see this card view. Look at this. There is no capital letter in my word card view. So I'm just going back to it again. I'll click on the project structure, click on app, and click on the plus and library dependencies. And there is no this thing. I just type in the card view and search. And see this card view is coming in here. And I'm just going to click on this. And this is what I wanted. And you have Android X card view, and it is all there. And I'm just going to take it. So you imported the card view right into it, and I'll say okay into the Gradle. Now I'll go to my Gradle. Now he's building it. Let us give a little bit of time. So please wait till he completes the build. So I'll go to the Gradle and I'll click on my build Gradle, and you all can see this implementation, and you can see the card view here, and you have gotten the card view. Now I'll go back to my resource. I'll go back to my layout, and now let me go create my card. And here I'm going to create my card layout. And here I don't need the constraint layout, and I'm just going to ask for the card view. See this Android X card view widget and card view. Now, without importing that dependency, you will not be able to get this card view just because you have imported the dependency. And when you type in the card view, it is going to come over here. And this is what you have to bring in. And now you have got the card. Now you have created the card view right here. Now this is a way that you can bring in a card view. Or now this card view can also be a part of your linear layout also. Not necessary that you have to have the card view, the root itself should be card view. If you want to, you can have the root itself as card view. Or if you want to, you can make it as a part of the linear layout also. Now I can change this to the linear layout. So look at this. I changed my card view that what I have created to the linear layout, and I can start bringing in some characteristics the regular way. Now inside my linear layout, now I will have yet another linear layout. Now here I'll go to the layout and I'm just going to take my vertical and I'm going to have yet another linear layout, and I'll go to the text and here you have yet another linear layout. And right inside this linear layout, I just want to bring in the username and password. Right inside this, I want to bring in the username and password. Now I'll go to the text and I'll take in the plain text. I'll drag and drop it here. So this is what it is, and I'm going to drag and drop yet another stuff. And this is how it looks like. And I'll go back to the text and you guys can see there are two edit controls. And here you can give it a hint or whatever you want. Now let me call this as hint and say username, please. And again, I'll have an hint here and I'll say password, please. Go back to the design and you will see the username, and oh no, the name is still there because we didn't delete this from here. So what you have done, you created a linear layout, and inside this you have created the username, please, and all those things. Now if you want to have the padding, and you can give a padding here because you know the padding is always it'll be handy so that it takes it right, it gives the padding around your edit control. So you just created it. And you're wondering, why is it we created the card view when you're again going back and doing everything inside the linear layout? It's very simple. Now I want to enamel this with the card view. Now please watch what I'm doing. And I'm just going to get my card view. And this is the body. And the width, I'm going to say match parent is the width. And the height, I'm going to say wrap content. And I've got my card. And I'll take this part of the card and I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to put my card, I'm going to wrap this up with my card, and I'm going to have my card here. And this is how I'm creating the card. Right inside the card, I have a linear layout and I have got the text view. There is also something called as an elevation to the card. Now this elevation, I can say 10 density independent pixels. This elevation is going to get a shadow around the card. Now let's take a look. See that you have got a card and you have got a shadow around the card, but actually you should not see the shadow on the card, but it is happening in a different way. And normally what should happen is you have to see the shadow around the card. Now let's go see what's happening. Now the card view, and this is the dependency 10 elevation is 10 dp. Now let me go check on this. Now when you move in, it shows up like that, otherwise it is all fine. Something is not right. Let me go to the reference and see where what I'm trying to do is all fine. Padding is fine and 7 dp is fine and just the same stuff. Let me do one thing. Let me take this there. Now in the emulator, he is not showing up right. And now when you run the program, the things will be all right. And let me go to the card layout. At least here you can see the card layout. Now you can see because you have a white patch on top of the white this thing, your card is sitting there. And whenever you give the elevation, let me call Android elevation card elevation, and let me give this as 10 density independent pixels, and let me go back to the design. And whenever I take the cursor, and this shadow that what you're trying to see at the bottom and on the top is the elevation that what you're trying to give. So when you take the cursor out, you see a white rectangle. On that you have the username and you have the password, and whenever the card comes up in your application, and it this in turn will bring in a shadow also onto the screen. And this is how you can create the card. What you have to understand is how to get in a card onto the screen, and this is how you can bring in a card onto the screen. Now if you still want to align right inside the card, and you can also call your padding, and I'll call this as 20 dp, and deliberately I'm giving a bigger size. See, this is your card. Now please note, I took my cursor in, and the first rectangle that what you see is the linear layout, and right inside that what you see is the card layout, and the card has got the protruding shadows, and this is how it looks, almost like a three-dimensional stuff even on the white screen. And this is how you guys can bring the card into the layout. Now this can be brought into the constraint layout or into the relative layout or into the linear layout. There is no rule that it has to be gotten only in the linear layout. You can bring in wherever you want. And this is how the card looks like. As we proceed with programming, and I'll be throwing more light on the card, and we're going to make it look more gorgeous. This is how you can create the card. Now remember, for the card, we have got the dependency and the card view. That is the dependency that what we have got. And only after that, you'll be able to create the card. And if you do not bring the dependency, the card view itself will not show up to you. Now, when you place it where you all saw the constraint layout, the card will not show up to you. And that's about it. With this, we have come to the end of the session. Have fun, and I had a great time with you all. Thank you so much.